the jungle.
Especially on the podcast, it's like
no one believes that when you tell them. It's like, but you do it all the time. It's like, dude,
no, man.
like, still,
It's not comfortable.
yeah, it's not comfortable.
Especially if you're the one going through it, like editing, you're like, oh my god, come
That
on.
was me. I said that.
For a long time, whenever we had first started, it's like, dude, I gotta lean down. We started where we were kind of sitting sideways. I'm like, no, dude.
Nope.
Yeah. Actually, whenever we were would talking about this, I was like, yeah, I would like to sit in the chair, but then I'm like, I got a side profile of myself. So, it wasn't any good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here back again with Stop the Ship. We got Mr. West, and I've got a guest, special guest out here in Texas. This is Jon Haws, founder and CEO of NRSNG. My man's making big moves. We got to fly out here because he had this second annual NRSNG Live conference here in Allen, Texas, and got to come out and do a little talking. It was pretty awesome. So wanted to get you on here and just chat with you, man. You want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Jon Haws. We're down here in Texas. I run a nursing education company called NRSNG. We really focus now on the student and trying to make their struggles easier, try to make their life easier, because, I mean, I'm a nurse by background. That's kind of how Brad and I met.
Yeah.
And got a family, got 2 kids, and that's about it. That's about all I do is family and business.
Family and business.
That's about it.
That's awesome.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So tell the people how you got to where you are.
How we got to where I am.
Because a lot of people are really interested. At least I am anyway. Whenever you look at people who are successful businessmen and women, it's like you kind of get to a point where you can feel like you have a limitation in your mind. It's like, how can I ever achieve that kind of success? And then understanding like we're just humans, you know. So just to let people know.
How far back do we go?
As far back as you want to go.
All right, cool.
Wherever you feel like your story began.
So for me, I mean, I would probably go back to college. When I graduated high school, I was pretty set on landscape architecture. Like, I'm going to be a landscape architect.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow,
that was the
I didn't
plan.
know
Like, I enjoyed it, went to school. That was my first major. And then shortly after that, my second major was engineering. Then it was business. Then it was, you know, that's kind of how it was. I was switching majors every single semester. So I took an intro to everything.
Okay.
Right? Graduated my associates, but it took me about 120 credit hours to get my associates because I was bouncing so much. Nothing ever lined up. And so after my associates, I actually pulled out of college.
Okay.
Came back here to Texas and started up a lawn business for the first time.
Okay.
And at that point, found my wife. We got married.
Yeah.
So I'm still sitting there with my associates. No real degree, no real work experience, honestly. And we move up to Oklahoma for her to start her job as a dietitian. And so up there, the big plan is I started watching HGTV, and I'm like, I'm gonna flip houses.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Nice.
So we bought a couple terrible houses, lost a lot of money, and that was my full-time role there. And it was at that point that my buddy who was in medical school calls me. He's like, hey, you should go to nursing school. So I applied to nursing school up there, go to the first day of orientation.
He didn't say you should go to med school?
No, he was like, don't do med school, dude. Like, med school is terrible. Don't do it. Be a nurse so you can be a CRNA. He's like,
Okay.
better schedule, easier to get into, you know, better work-life balance.
Sure.
So I look at it, apply, got into the nursing school up there, went to the first day there and looked around and I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't feel like I fit in, didn't feel like it was right.
Right.
You know, the stories they tell on that first day.
Oh, yeah. Horror stories.
Yeah, so I pulled out. I told my wife, all right, I'm going to go medical school then.
Okay.
So we wrapped things up there in Oklahoma, moved back here to Dallas, moved in with her parents, and I started taking prereqs for med school.
Mm-hmm.
My wife at the time, well, my wife that I have today at the time, she's like, she's going to go to med school too. So we're both going to apply to med school. We're going to be, you know, husband-wife physician team. So we start taking prereqs together, which was a bad idea because I'm really competitive.
Yeah.
And she gets an A in physics, I get a B. And I'm like, damn it, you know, I'm out, med school's out, not doing that. So at the time, I'm working at a sporting goods store here, and I don't know if you guys have Academy Sports out.
Yep.
So I was working just doing stock at Academy Sports, 4 a.m. to noon, you know, every day doing that. And the position opens up down in Houston at the corporate office to become a buyer down there. So in the meantime, side note, I finished my bachelor's degree online. So I just get an online bachelor's degree just to have something.
Okay.
So I got a bachelor's in business, working as a stock boy, and moved down to Houston to become a buyer for Academy Sports. First day on the job, I'm like, this was a mistake. You know, because it's sitting at a computer in a cubicle with your button up.
So everything that you've been through, let me interject real quick. Everything that you had been through up to that point, how did that feel? having a bachelor's in business and doing what you were doing and not being fulfilled?
I mean, I thought, so when I took that job, I thought, and my wife and I, we both thought, we're like, okay, in 6 months, I'm going to be moving up in the company, right?
Right, okay.
And that's not how it goes in a big corporate place. You know, you got to spend your time, you got to wait for other people to retire.
Yep.
So, I mean, when I first got the job, it was kind of fulfilling. It was like, you know, I'm doing something real in the world versus trying to start these little businesses and things.
Sure.
So it actually felt good. But then my wife gets pregnant first time, and we realized my salary was only like $37,000 a year.
Okay.
You know, which at the time felt like a ton of money for us. But
Right.
when she had to pull back from her job, we realized there's no way I'm going to be able to provide for the family. So that's when I go to nursing school again.
Okay.
So I applied to nursing school again, but we realized I have to have a nursing school that's online or at night and weekends, so she can work in the day. I can take care of our child.
Yeah.
Then I would go to school at night. You know, kind of
Gotcha.
balance it like that. So we move up to Illinois, go to nursing school. Had that whole experience. It was actually a pretty terrible experience. I talk about it a lot on my blog and stuff, but it started laying the groundwork for where we are today. So at one point I actually withdraw from nursing school, move back in with my parents, and go back to lawn care.
And how old were you at this time?
Almost 30.
Okay.
Yeah, almost 30 with an online degree
Yeah.
and nothing else. And I was going to a no-name nursing school, you know.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, I'm going to do lawn care because that's what I know, and that's what I kept going back to because I knew how to make money with it,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
But it was enough money when I was single, right? But now I got a wife and kid, living with my parents, and then my wife ends up pregnant again. And so at that point, it's like, I remember it was about Christmas time. I can't remember the year, but it was about Christmas time. Shortly after learning she was pregnant, that I would lay awake in bed that whole like Christmas season, just stressed about this, right? Because that's the down season too, and I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna make money, and I just couldn't sleep. It was terrible. It was like the first time I really felt like depression at like a big level, you know, and anxiety and stuff. Cause I'm like, how am I going to do this?
The walls closing in.
Yeah, it felt like everything was closing in, exactly. Because we couldn't live with my parents. I mean, I couldn't do that, you know. So I'm about 30 at that time, 29. Well, I must have been 31 even almost.
Okay.
30, 31. So luckily we left the door open with my school that I could go back. So I get online one day after talking with my wife. I'm like, I guess let's do this, right? So I email the school. I'm like, hey, is it cool if I come back? So we tried to work out, is there a way I can stay in Dallas and finish remote? And they're like, there's just no way we can do that. You need to be here in person. So talk with our parents, talk with my in-laws. We're like, we can't afford this. So they both lend us enough money to move up there, finish up school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a lifesaver. We told them, we're like, this is what we want to do, and there's no way we can do it without help, because we're already on food stamps, Medicaid, WIC, all that stuff. My wife's already trying to work. We're about to have a second kid. It's just not going to work otherwise. So I end up going up to school. Then my wife and 2 kids come up a couple weeks later for me to finish that last semester. And then I finished nursing school. So now I have a degree that can make money and I can go anywhere with, right? So that felt good. Got a job right away here at a big hospital in Dallas. And shortly after that, just kind of start writing online about my experience. Pretty anonymously, right? Because I'm like, I'd never done YouTube before.
Gotcha.
I'd never done podcasts before or even really blogging. And all I knew of YouTube was the comments, right?
Right.
Where the trolls live, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I start sharing this stuff online, I know people are going to hate me because it's controversial, but, like, I struggled. I just want to get this stuff out there.
Sure.
So started really anonymously with this website. It was like nursing school study aids or something.
Okay.
Didn't put my name anywhere on it. And then eventually kind of did a podcast. I don't remember, I think listening to Pat Flynn or something like that. You don't know if you know Pat
No, I
Flynn,
don't.
smart passive income guy. He had a walkthrough series on YouTube of how to start a podcast. So I just followed the steps,
That's awesome.
recorded the first one. It was horrible, but it got the first 10 downloads, right? And I'm like, all right, so maybe people want some more of
Lit
this.
that
So
fire, yeah.
I put the second one out, you know, put the third one out, put the fourth one out. And people kept listening. And so I started becoming less anonymous. I was like, okay, maybe there's a little tribe here of people who want to listen to this and who agree with this and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was timid at first, very timid at first, and scared of you know what people how they would accept it. But as they started to accept it more, I started to be more vulnerable and share more of my story. And then people started emailing saying, "Hey, I thought you were talking about my school. I thought you were talking about my journey." And I'm like, "All right, maybe this wasn't just my problem," because I went to a small private nursing school, unheard of.
Right.
And so I thought maybe just this school doesn't have the funding or whatever to be good.
Then you realize
It's everywhere.
it's everywhere.
And then we're getting people from top tier schools emailing too, saying,
And you start building this community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then it really started around the community, and so we really focused on that. Even from the beginning, one of the first terms we used was NRSNG family.
Mm-hmm.
That look, you might feel, rejected out there, but here you're safe.
That's awesome.
And so yeah, we really started it. It was NRSNG, and the tagline was like tools and confidence to succeed. Because we said, okay, we're going to give you some tools, which were things like cheat sheets and downloads and some of my notes, and then confidence, where the podcast is where I would dole out the confidence. Like you can do this, you can do this. It's okay,
Right.
I did it.
Sure.
You can do it. And so that's kind of how that all started.
Yeah.
And then continuing to just build the community is how it was. We would, once we had a community, we would survey them directly. What do you guys need?
Yeah.
And then build more to that and to that.
Gotcha.
So I don't know how much from there you want from there to here.
No, that was great. I just, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who are struggling with things like this, who have those inner, turmoil where they want to be successful, they want to do things, but at the same time, there's the reality of life that's holding them down and bogging them down, and it's like, how do we navigate out of this state of depravity into a mind state of just trying to be successful?
And that's what's so cool about this whole world is like this podcast world is, you put yourself out there and everyone thinks that we're all alone in these struggles that we go through, and we internalize everything, and just knowing that somebody else is struggling with the same thing, like it makes you feel like you're not alone and gives you hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think so. Yeah, I mean that's how it was for me. Like I started listening to some of these guys like Pat Flynn on the podcast, and you feel like you know them.
Exactly,
because it's like they're in your ear every day, and they're telling you how they did it. And when they're vulnerable and share their story, it's like maybe they're not superhuman.
Yeah.
Maybe they're actually a person.
Right.
And then you meet them at the conferences and things. You're like, they are a person.
Right.
And so for me, starting out, like the first goal was, so then it started to make some money, right? So then I put some books on Kindle and stuff. And we're like, okay, maybe this is something.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted to do business and stuff, but I didn't know how to do the two. So it started to make money. And the first goal was like, if I can just replace my income at the hospital, then I'll do this full time, right? And then I heard someone, I used to hate driving to the hospital. Like, it was an hour and a half drive.
God.
I worked in the neuro ICU.
Nights.
Hour
and a half drive.
Nights, hour and a half drive, neuro ICU. And I was always picking up bonus shifts and stuff to pay off it ended up being about $65,000 in student loan debt.
Yeah.
Right? So I started working nights to pay off the extra debt. And I would drive to work listening to podcasts the whole way.
Okay.
See, the podcasts are like screamo music to get myself pumped up to actually go in. So I listened to podcasts and started listening to a lot of guys that were in business podcasts and stuff like that. And there's one guy, Ryan Daniel Moran, right? And he has a podcast. I can't even remember. But one thing he said, and I remember I was on 75. You guys just been on 75 up near Plano, about where you guys were at. And he said, right when I was passing that, he goes, the drive for entrepreneurship is greater than death. And I remember hearing that on the way to work. And I thought, okay, am I that committed to making this work?
Right.
Or am I just doing this on the side? I remember coming home that next morning telling my wife, I just heard him say this, and that's what I'm going to work from. That I would rather be an entrepreneur. I would rather die than not be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That it's such a huge drive that everything's going to be on this. So when I wasn't working in the hospital, this is all I did.
Yeah.
When my kids were at preschool, this is what I did. When my kids went to bed, this is what I did.
Gotcha.
Till 11 o'clock at night. It's all I did was work for this community, trying to build up this community that I would rather die than not succeed with this.
That's phenomenal.
I mean, it motivated me. And then he had another podcast where he said, and this is a dumb brain exercise, it feels super easy, but it was a huge motivation at the time because my mind was very limited at the time, right? He goes, think of the biggest income number you can think of making in your business.
Right.
So for me that was maybe $50,000 a year, something like that,
Right.
And that was big. That's like, if we do, that's like $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year, whatever. That's huge. Like, that's a ton. And then he goes, now 10x it.
Okay.
And he says, and he says, that's fine. So now I'm at 500,000. Okay. And now he says, make yourself see that number in your bank account and make yourself be uncomfortable with that. Like, make it so real having that $50,000 a month coming in
right,
that it gets uncomfortable, right? So that's the goal I set. I said, okay, we're going to make 50,000.
Right.
We're going to make 50,000 a year, you know. And then as we reach those milestones, we set bigger milestones and bigger milestones. And every time we've reached a milestone, I 10x it next time. No.
That's awesome.
And so we did it recently again, where I went to a conference in February, software focused conference, and I went with a number in mind of how big I thought this could be. First day of the conference, I called my wife Sandy. I'm like, "No, it's going to be 10x that.
Right.
You know, that's where we're going to go." And I was there with my lead engineer, and we both saw it. Like, it became tangible at that moment.
Yeah.
And it scares the shit out of us.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're focused on you know, because that number means reach. It means impact. It means you have to think global. You have to think big, and you have to impact more people to reach the level we want to be.
Right.
So yeah, those two things really drove me, and that's where we've been focused. Where it's not about reaching those numbers. It's about having that impact. You know.
That's really awesome. So who was that again that said that? The 10X?
It was Ryan Daniel Moran, and I'm trying to even remember his name of his podcast. He runs the website capitalism.com.
Okay.
And so,
That's really interesting.
plot twist, met him at a conference maybe last year.
Okay.
So he's getting ready to speak, and I saw him. I was like, "Hey, Ryan," he's like, "You said this,"
Yeah.
and it changed everything. He's like, "I said that? I don't remember saying that." I was like, it changed everything for me. But in that moment, he became human too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he's doing all these things, and I was looking at him, but it's like, you're just a human. And
It's just so cool to hear that a podcast changed your perspective, changed your focus. I told Brad before, like, when I started listening to podcasts, it changed my whole life because it just gave me perspective of people outside of me, outside of my circle of friends and family, just to think of things different and question things and not just think that you have things figured out, just being open to other people's perspective.
And I think it gives you that global reach of people that you wouldn't. I mean, this, like we were saying before we started, like, this wasn't possible even 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that you could sit on a podcast and hear Gary Vee talk to CEO of whatever company. It's like, that wasn't possible for me to get one-on-one interaction with those guys, you know?
People pay money to just sit in a room.
Sit in a room.
Yeah.
Hundreds
and
of
that's
millions of
and that's
dollars.
what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And if you internalize this stuff, I mean, you're hearing from these people exactly what they did to get where you want to be. And just success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. And they're sharing their clues. You just follow that trail.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you get where they are.
Did you have successful people in your personal life?
Yeah,
Coming up?
I think what really got me into the internet stuff initially was my cousin Spencer.
Okay.
So he runs a blog, Niche Pursuits. And so actually, it was when I was in nursing school. My grandpa died, and we went out to the funeral. And so I sit down to eat lunch of the funeral potatoes and stuff.
Right.
Sit next to Spencer. I'm like, "So what are you working on? Or what are you doing?" I said.
Yeah.
Where do you work? I didn't even know. I hadn't seen him in years. And he's like, "I'm quitting my job at Wells Fargo next week because my blog is making so much money that I don't have to work anymore." I'm like,
Wow.
Hold on.
Completely
Tell me
polar
what's going on.
concept.
Yeah, and so he probably told that story 100 times, and most people just, "Oh, cool," you know?
Right.
But it was that moment for me that I was like, before that moment, I thought all internet people were scammers, right?
Okay, yeah.
If you're selling something online, you're a scammer, right? And as that moment was like, I know Spencer, I know he's honest, and so so I started bothering him.
Yeah.
Every second, I was like,
Pick his
"Dude,
brain.
what'd you do? How'd you do this? What's this doing?" And for him to be able to quit his job, like, that was unheard of to me,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know that was something that could happen. And so then anybody that he interviewed on his podcast, I saw as trustworthy because I knew he was trustworthy. So I knew he's not going to bring on. So I started following them, people like Nick Loper, Pat Flynn, these types of guys who were doing, these niche blogs and stuff. So I did everything I could. I just started harassing those guys, and got conversations with them, and just
That's awesome.
I was a little mosquito just bugging these guys.
Yeah. That's the reason I asked. Just kind of segueing, but talking about what we were previously talking about with podcasts, just having accessibility to people. That's the reason I asked. Is just because, and I do keep like going back to the people out there who are watching, the audience. Just the fact that not a lot of people do have successful people in their circle. Like I said, a lot of people do grow up in that state of depravity or poverty or whatever it might be, and if that's all that they ever see, that's all that they ever know, and then it can become confining, and they can never branch out and grow out as a result. But if they don't have anybody in their direct physical environment, it's really cool that we do have this medium right here. As long as you have access to internet, I mean, you've got access to a plethora of podcasts and information that you would never.
There's a podcaster, John Lee Dumas. He does the Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Okay.
Or EO Fire. And he would interview one entrepreneur every single day. These short episodes. And at the end of every episode, he'd say the Jim Rohn quote. He would say, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And he says, "You've been hanging out with me and fill in the blank."
Right.
You know, and that meant a lot to me. It's like, yeah, you're right. Like, I just heard
That's true.
Yeah.
this dude
That's true.
or this girl who's light years ahead of me talk to me about how they did it, you know?
Right.
So I think that, that's what we're doing
That's a
here.
great quote too.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it really is. It's true.
And you can do that digitally. I tell my wife that. I told my wife that because I would say that. I was like, I need these people in my life. It's like, how do I get these people? I have to think bigger. I have to think, you know. And so part of it's just podcast. Part of it's harassing them. Part of it's going to those conferences. And,
Right.
And just being in the same room as these people and stuff.
I do have another question.
Yeah.
Whenever you were going through those very hard times when you're on WIC and Medicaid or Medicare or whatever it was, how did you mentally? Do you recall how did you mentally navigate out of the state of depression or anxiety or I mean I know just to get past that mental block.
I mean, first of all, I would say that I still have those dark times. Like,
Sure.
Even like we were about to have this conference, right? And 200 people were coming, and you were coming, and even last week I hit a really low point, and it just happens. And
Yeah.
I think for me, like with depression, I've started to learn to kind of ride the waves a little bit, and I've let people know that anybody I hire that works directly with me, I'm like, this is how it is with me.
Yeah.
Like I might be on these really highs, and I might be able to produce really high, but I'm going to make sure we have all the meetings at that point because it's likely the next week I might need a day in bed.
Yeah.
Where I'm not able to get out of bed.
Gotcha.
And it's not because I don't want to, but it's because I can't.
No control.
Yeah, I can't. And I don't remember having depression growing up, but in the last several years, it's hit. As the stakes feel higher in my mind, it feels scarier to fail. I guess. Almost.
Yeah. Sure.
So Lexapro helped.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then as you grow, as far as surrounding yourself with good people, hire people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And stronger than you. And I don't mean better like better, but people who are better at certain things
Sure.
than you. And learn to trust. That's one of the hardest things. Learning to trust and let those people, when I need a day in bed or when I need a day away, I know that things are going to be okay because I'm hiring people able to do it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. That probably doesn't help at all. I don't know.
No, it does.
I mean, in the earlier days when I didn't have those people and stuff, it was being open with my wife.
Yeah.
At least I had her. I have a good family network.
Did you ever hit a state of hopelessness?
All the time.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah,
even still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep you grounded.
I guess.
No, but it's
hard.
cool to see someone in your position,
Be open and vulnerable about that.
Yeah, because so many people deal with that, and they think it's because they're not where they want to be, and you're proof that when you are in the process of doing something, great, helping all these people out, you could still feel those feelings,
Right.
And that's another thing that makes people feel like they're not alone.
Yeah.
It's something we all struggle with.
I think, you and I were talking about this last night. Like, people just need to be open about that because if you look at my resume externally, it's like, wife, 2 kids,
Right.
got a house,
This guy's living
2
a pristine
cars.
life. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we got a business that pays 20, 30 employees. That looks good,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that this is perfect.
Yeah.
And I still have to battle that, and it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gotten bad before,
Yeah.
and it's even recently, and I think the first thing was, and it was the hardest part, was my buddy who was the physician who told me to go to nursing school. We've grown up, and we're apart now, distance-wise, but we're still good friends.
Yeah.
It was just texting him, being like, "Dude, I'm down," you
Yeah.
know, and that was being able to do that. That first person you tell is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do that, it opens it up. Like I think depression thrives in darkness.
Yeah.
And so if you can just open up,
That's a good way of putting it.
yeah, if you can open up to one person,
Yeah.
at least you have them you can go to.
Yeah. Yeah, after I lost my mom and my dad, I ended up having to get on antidepressants, and it was like, because it was the same thing. It's like, dude, every day is just shit. I mean, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to work. Everything was down. I got on meds too. I don't remember what I got on. I can't remember what I got on, but it helped. It did,
Yeah. It gets you through that lowest point at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's also interesting how you said that it's cool that he's gained the kind of success that he has, but he still deals with these things and then being open and vulnerable about it. So it's interesting to think that just because people out there who are in pursuit of success, however they define success, understanding that may not always equate into, it's not going to solve your problems.
It's not happiness. Yeah. It's not joy and happiness or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess whenever you guys are going through the process of just trying to build whatever you're trying to build, grow however you are, just understand that if the thought in your mind is that this is just going to lead to my life becoming perfect, just understand that it's not.
It's never.
It's a constant navigation toward happiness.
I know you love Gary Vee. You guys love Gary Vee, and that's why I think like his goal being so big of buying the New York Jets. Yeah, and he's open about it.
That's so cool.
That's not something because I think here's what happened when you set these, and this is the value in having that 10x goal too. I don't like revenue targets for like achievement. You know what I mean? Because, but aside from that, like any goal you set, as soon as you hit it, you have that moment of high, and then it's like, now what? I thought everything was going to be good now,
right?
And then that's not how it is.
You know who Marco Pierre White is? He's the chef who Gordon Ramsay trained underneath, and so he was the youngest chef to earn 3 Michelin stars and 5 black. It's like black knives or something. It's the highest level of attainment that you can get. And I was watching this interview where he was talking about that, and that was just, he was laser focused. That's all that he wanted. And when he finally achieved it, it was just like that. It was like he was on top of the world very momentarily, and then after that, it was just like it was just a grind to have to maintain that.
Now I got to go to work.
It. Yeah, and it's just like, and I think it led him down a path of depression. And it's like. He lost his sense of purpose too. It's like I've gained everything that I had ever wanted to gain. It's like, where do I go from here? But
that's what I'm interested to see what happens when Gary buys the New York Jets.
Yeah,
because what's the next
But
filler for him?
he's talked about that too.
Yeah.
He said, I really want to buy the Jets, but I'm also scared as fuck of buying the Jets too, because if that is his ultimate end goal, it's like,
then what?
Yeah, and he's
Because he's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, he is. Guy's a beast.
It's just awesome that we talk about manifesting things like into reality, and he has the courage to put it out into the world. Like, there's a chance that he never could,
Right.
But he's being vulnerable by setting a goal, letting everybody know his goal. So there could be haters that hold him to it,
Right.
like, no, you said this, but it's just he's manifesting that, and I'm sure that's a goal he'll accomplish.
And I think that with that too, like, because we've been talking about surrounding yourself with people, like internally, like our company, I've scared the shit out of every employee because of the goals that I've set for this company.
Right.
But what it does is it's forcing all of them to expand a little bit too, because they all came and said, well, my job is to be an accountant, for example. So as long as I complete the spreadsheet, no, your job is to be CFO of the largest nursing company in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now how do I get to there? Damn, we just printed this quote that I really like. It's set goals so high that you can't achieve them with the person you are today or whatever like that. But yeah, I can't be the CEO of the largest nursing education company, but that's okay. We're not that company today.
Right.
But I'm going to be the CEO of that company.
There you go.
And I'm going to grow to be that.
That's awesome, man. I think we're probably about at the end of our time. We're going to do like hot ones. Do you want to plug anything? Let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, I mean, we're over at NRSNG.com. If you know any nurses, send them our way.
Yeah. Jon Haws, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Appreciate you for coming out, man.
For real.
Deuces.
Debo estar listo